Hello, and welcome to this Tetris Publishing video on querying SQL Server. I'm Adam, and in this session I want to show you some more tricks to apply when filtering data using where clauses in SQL. Let's start by looking at the subjects that we'll be covering in this session. To begin with, we're going to look at wildcard filters. These are used for carrying out fuzzy searches when you're looking for part of a text in a field and not the whole field contents. Then we'll look at the specific way that you can look for null data, that is to say completely empty fields in a table. We'll then look at mixing inclusion and exclusion filters, bringing in some data and specifically excluding other data. Finally, we'll see how to filter on a specific part of a text-based field. There will be times when you're not looking for an exact match when you're querying a database. You could be looking for part of a name, for instance, and yet you still want SQL Server to find some data that makes a reasonable guess at matching the text you're looking for. So let's see how to do this. The first thing to do is to open a new query window. And of course, I'm going to select the Prestige Cars database to ensure that the query will actually use this database. Then I'm going to paste in a very simple query. Before running this query, let's take a closer look at it. This query is looking for customers named Pete, or more precisely for any records where the customer name field contains the 4 characters PETE. I'll now run this query and see what happens. The query returns 4 records. Let's take a closer look at them. Each record contains the word Pete somewhere in the customer name field. This text can appear anywhere in the field, the start, the end or the middle. So how does SQL find a partial match in a text? The answer is in the where clause. Using the like keyword instead of an equal sign or the in keyword tells SQL that you want to filter on part of a field. Then you add the percentage symbol at the start or end of the text that you're looking for, but nonetheless inside single quotes, to ensure that the filter text will appear anywhere inside this field. In this next example, I want to look for null or non-existent data. That is, fields that contain nothing at all. So I'm now going to tweak this current query to look for customers where the postcode field is completely empty. I'm taking away the current where clause, and in its place I'm putting postcode is null. Now let's run the query. This query shows that we're missing postcode data for many of our customers. So, how does it work? Well, quite simply, specifying in the where clause that a field is null means that you've said where this field contains no data. Be warned, however, that null means a field is completely empty. If users have entered double spaces or single spaces or even a couple of single quotes, all of which could be invisible to the eye but mean that the field isn't strictly empty, then these fields will not be returned by isNull. Note as well that you say is null and not equals null. I'm now going to close this query window and open another one. And now I'm going to paste in a new query. This query imagines that you want to mix inclusion and exclusion filters. Specifically, you want a list of all the cars that are in any of 3 specific colours, yet none of them can be a particular make. This is the logic applied by this particular query. The query begins by joining all the tables that are needed to display data for vehicles sold. However, as is nearly always the case when filtering data, the essence of the query is in the where clause. The where clause here is in 2 parts. The first part of the query uses an in clause to list a set of colours that must be contained in the colour field of the stock table. Then the AND keyword introduces a second condition. This second condition uses the exclusion operator, exclamation followed by equals sign, and a specific field and value. This makes the query find vehicles of any of those colours that are not Bentleys. Now let's execute the query and then scroll through the results. As you can see, there are no Bentleys in the list, and all the cars are red, blue or green. As a final example of more advanced filtering using the where clause, let's look at filtering on a specific part of a text field. Once again, I'm going to close the query window and open another one. And now I'm going to paste in a new query. The aim of this query is to find every invoice number that has FR as the fourth and fifth characters. I admit that this is a little abstruse, but you could well find yourself needing to do things like this one day. What matters is that SQL can filter the text at a specific position in a field. Let's take a good look at the where clause. Once again, we're entering a field name, invoice number in this example, and once again we're using the like keyword to indicate that we're looking for a partial match. Now, to make this query work, you need to understand that the three leftmost characters indicate the currency of sale. Characters 4 and 5 indicate the destination country, and the last three characters provide a sequential invoice number. So what the where clause does is, firstly it says find any three characters to the left of the field. These are given by the three underscores. Then filter on FR, and finally don't filter on any other characters to the end of the text. Let anything through, no matter how many characters. This is represented by the wildcard percentage symbol. Let's execute the query and see if it works. And now let's look at the results. You can see that every record returned contains FR as the fourth and fifth characters, whatever the first three and whatever the characters after FR. As this might be a little hard to grasp, let's take a more schematic view at how this filter works. You can see in this image how the text in the invoice number field is laid out and how the where clause can use data to isolate certain elements of the field. So what are the key things to take away from this short video? Well, firstly, the wildcard character, percentage, is used for fuzzy searches. This means you're looking for anything in the field. Remember, a wildcard at the start means anything up to a character. A wildcard at the end means anything from here on in. The second thing to remember is that isNull means find fields where the field itself contains nothing at all. No spaces, no double quotes, nothing whatsoever. Then you saw that you can combine filters that include some elements and yet exclude others. These are AND or exclusion filters. Finally, you saw that you can use highly specific wildcards which say which character or characters can be anything at all. To conclude this video, let's look at a handful of tricks and traps that you really need to be aware of. The first thing to remember is that placing the wildcard character, that's the percentage, at the start of a comparison means the required text followed by any character and any number of characters. Inversely, placing the wildcard character at the end of a comparison means any number of characters followed by the specific text you entered. Then, when you're looking for empty fields, use isNull and not equalsNull, or the query simply won't work. When you're looking to exclude a specific element, you can either use !equals or lesser than greater than. Both produce exactly the same effect. And finally, on a more generic note, when you're looking at really complex queries, it helps to break them down into component elements and try and understand what's required before you actually leap into writing the SQL code. Thank you for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this short session and that it will encourage you to continue learning all about querying SQL Server. And remember, if you need a full and progressive introduction to querying SQL Server, you can always take a look at our books on this subject. These 2 volumes can help transform you from a SQL novice to an analytics maestro. To find them, just go to Amazon.com and search for Query Answers with SQL Server. Alternatively, visit your local bookstore. If you want to download the sample data that you saw in this video, as well as the SQL queries that we used, then navigate to www.tetraspublishing.com/SQL Server. Here you can find the sample data for download and practice querying it using SQL Server.